Logic alone is not enough to get through the GMAT successfully. You must get good at managing and guiding your emotions to work through tough GMAT problems. In the next 9 minutes, I will demonstrate practical examples of improvements you can make in managing your emotions to do better on GMAT Quant and how you can identify more such improvements for yourself. Today is day 15 of my GMAT Prep. Before I get into practice, I want to quickly touch upon one key principle which will help bring consistency into your GMAT performance. If you are someone whose scores on the GMAT overall or a particular section of the GMAT oscillates all over the place, this principle will help you lock in your best performance irrespective of what problems show up on the test. This principle is also key for you to improve your accuracy and optimize your problem-solving velocity over time. The principle itself is simple. Standardize the process. At its core, what this principle means is that you need to develop a simple, standard process that you can apply to every single problem that you encounter on the GMAT. Assuming you are familiar with the GMAT, you know that the GMAT has different types of problems: quantitative reasoning, critical reasoning, data sufficiency, and so on. So obviously, the approach required to solve each type of problem needs to be different. So what could it mean when I say standardize the process? Well, the process that I'm referring to are the cognitive and emotional steps you are required to take while solving through a GMAT problem. Like it or not, the GMAT will elicit emotional reactions out of you and try to put you into a cognitive bind to see if you can separate yourself from the rest of the crowd. I will talk a little bit more about this principle later on in this video. For now, it is time to jump into practice. In line with my study plan, I will continue to practice problems from the quant section today. My first problem set today consists of question number 6, 16, 26 and so on up to question number 226. My second problem set will be questions 7, 17, 27 up to question number 227. All question numbers I've mentioned are from the quantitative reasoning section of the GMAT official guide version 2023-24. Let's get going. Alright, so I am 2.5 hours in. I attempted 2 practice sets today. The first one somehow felt significantly harder. That one constituted question 6, 16 and so on from the GMAT official guide. It took me 67 minutes in total. I solved 23 questions in that time frame. I answered 3 questions incorrectly, specifically questions 96, 106 and 226. I also had to reattempt 2 questions, which were questions 46 and 216. These were questions I reattempted because I was unable to identify a clear solutioning approach on the first go. However, I did end up answering both of those questions right once I had identified a solutioning approach. Like I've mentioned before, questions where you encounter this kind of problem are great candidates for the bookmarks feature on the GMAT Focus Edition. Let's talk in more detail about the questions I answered incorrectly. On question 96, I made the error of not committing to the question fully. As a result, I did not follow through with all the required calculations. Another way to say it is that I was being cognitively lazy while solving this question. Because I solved it half-heartedly, it is not a surprise that I ended up with the wrong answer. It's a classic GMAT trap, after all. The great thing about this was that solving this question incorrectly was a good reminder for me to remember one of the principles that I'm yet to describe in this series of videos. I will touch upon that in the future. On question 106, I actually just made a very trivial error. I calculated the answer using the wrong units. This is another classic GMAT trap. In my case, I ascribed that to a lapse in self-awareness as I was going through the practice set. The learning here is that going forward, I need to try to remain self-aware and police my mental state to make sure that I don't lose that alertness, which will protect me from trivial mistakes like this. On question 226, I was actually very confident of my approach. So even when I retried the question, I ended up using the same approach again. However, when I got the answer wrong, I realized that it is likely that what I was missing was some nuance in the approach approach itself. You might remember that one of my key rules for GMAT practice sessions is to never look at the solutions of questions that you have answered incorrectly. You must stick to that at least till you have tried the question 3 to 4 times on different practice days. However, as far as question 226 is concerned, because I was confident in my approach, I decided to break that rule as a one-off and did glance quickly at the solution as well. The intention was to find a hint. Thankfully, the hint made me realize that I did actually forget a very minor detail in the approach that I was using to solve this question. Once I had that detail, I was able to solve it through and answer the question correctly. So that's a learning that I hope to retain for next time, and I hope that when I come across a question like this again, I will be able to answer it right in one go. Now let's talk about the second practice set, which consisted of questions 7, 17, 27 and so on. Like I said, the previous practice set was a great reminder for some of the principles which I was not applying very well while going through it. So when I started on the second practice set for today, I was very conscious of ensuring that I applied those principles properly. As a result, I also felt a little bit more organized and clear in my head as I got to this practice set. Part of it was because I had built the momentum by solving through questions on the previous practice set. Coming to the outcome, it took me 49 minutes in total to solve 23 questions on this practice set. I answered all of the questions correctly in one go. Question 27 in particular took me some extra work, but that was because I created a mess the first time I wrote things down on my scratch pad, and then I realized I was out of space entirely. So I had to go to the next page and write everything down once again to solve the problem through. Between that little amount of rework and the fact that I attempted 23 questions in total, I think I did pretty well on problem solving velocity as well by doing all of that within 49 minutes. As you know, the final GMAT gives you 45 minutes to answer 21 questions on the quant section. One key piece of advice: my study plan actually does not require me to solve 2 practice sets on the same day. However, I often take it upon myself to make that a stretch goal when possible. There's a reason for that, which is the following. You can only tell that one thing is good if you have something to compare it against. This is something very fundamental to how we as human beings experience our lives and our environments. The same applies to the GMAT as well. When you go through 2 practice sets on the same day, you will begin to notice fine differences in your experience. It might have to do with how you approach problems, how you use the scratch pad, your emotional state, or even the mix of problems that you solved within a practice set. Depending on the differences in outcome, you will be able to tell what worked and what didn't. For example, on the first practice set today, I was not in a state of deep focus. I was getting a little distracted, thinking of projects I'm working on, meetings I have recently been part of, and whatnot. By the time I got to the second problem set, my mind was a little calmer. As a result, I was more committed to each problem. I was writing things down neatly, organizing things well in one go, and so on. The lesson here is for you to occasionally go beyond your study plan and actually challenge yourself. If you can, squeeze multiple practice sets in the same day. That's all on that topic. Let me now revisit the principle of standardize the process. Every GMAT problem can be solved using the same exact steps. Read the problem, note the relevant information, identify what you need to answer, and then solve things through. Now, what I described roughly sounds like a process, and it is even a standardized process in the sense that the same can be repeated across all GMAT questions. Of course, everyone taking the GMAT is going through those steps. The difference, however, is in how granular your steps are. When it comes to the GMAT, the granularity of your process will determine the quality and consistency of your solutions. The same actually applies to any kind of competition in the marketplace. 2 people of equal intelligence solving the exact same problems on the GMAT can end up with very different outcomes, and that often comes down to the quality of process that each person is using. This comes down to details such as what you're writing on the scratch pad or how you're writing on the scratch pad, and even what is it that you do when you feel stuck on a problem. So pick some learnings from this video that you would like to incorporate into your standardized process for working through problems on the GMAT. So that is all for today. If you have any questions, click on the Ask Me Anything link in the video description. Tell me something in the comments, such as what you learned from this video, or why you want to pursue an MBA or an MS degree. You can even tell me what you are doing on YouTube instead of practicing GMAT problems. I will stop there. I wish you the best with your practice. I will catch you next time.